Jason trudged down the cracked sidewalk, the cold autumn wind sneaking beneath his thin jacket, making him shiver despite the movement. His feet were sore from the long diner shift, but the thought of his daughter Lily waiting at the neighbor's house gave him strength to keep going. The streets were almost deserted, the small town settling quietly into the evening. Yellow-orange leaves scuttled along the ground, pushed by the breeze, and the first street lamps flickered on as dusk approached. Just as Jason rounded the corner near the old stone bank, something caught his eye. A figure lying still on the sidewalk by the granite steps. At first he thought it was someone sleeping or seeking shelter from the cold, but the person's shape was fragile and uneven, too motionless to be resting comfortably. A golden retriever sat beside her, its large head resting gently on her lap, eyes alert and watchful. Jason's heart sped up. He knelt quickly beside her, brushing back damp strands of hair from her pale, dirt-smudged face. Her eyelids fluttered weakly. Hey, can you hear me?" His voice was soft but urgent. She made a faint, rasping sound and whispered in a voice barely louder than the wind, "I own this bank." Jason blinked in disbelief, trying to grasp the meaning of those words. "You own this bank?" he repeated carefully, almost afraid he misunderstood. Her green eyes opened briefly, full of pain, but also sharpness, then closed. Again. Her breath was shallow and unsteady. He quickly checked her pulse. It was faint, but steady. Without hesitation, Jason pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her thin shoulders, shivering against the cold. The dog growled low but did not move to stop him. Jason felt a strange warmth from the animal, as if it trusted him despite the strange situation. Fumbling with numb fingers, Jason pulled out his phone and dialed emergency services, his voice shaky but clear as he explained the situation. Time dragged painfully as he stayed kneeling beside the woman, gently cradling her head, whispering words of comfort and encouragement. When the flashing lights of the ambulance finally arrived, Jason watched closely as paramedics took over, carefully lifting her onto a stretcher. The dog jumped into the ambulance alongside her without hesitation. Jason stood back silent and worried until the vehicle disappeared down the street. That night, back in his small, cramped apartment, the warmth inside did little to thaw Jason's anxious heart. Lily sat on the couch, her small hands busy coloring, a drawing of a unicorn and a rainbow taped to the fridge. Her eyes bright and curious, she looked up as Jason came in, carrying the weight of the evening in his hunched shoulders. "Daddy, who was the lady you found?" Lily asked in a small voice, her innocence a fragile light in the dim room. Jason smiled tiredly, brushing her hair gently. "Someone who needed help. Someone very important." Lily's eyes grew wider. "Did she have a dog?" Jason nodded. "The sweetest dog you'll ever meet." Lily yawned and snuggled closer to him, comforted by the story despite not understanding its full meaning. Jason kissed her forehead and promised himself he would do whatever it took to give her a better future. The next morning, Jason's thoughts wouldn't leave the woman and her mysterious words. The bank building loomed grandly under the morning sun, its heavy stone walls intimidating and cold. Jason stood hesitantly near the entrance, unsure if he belonged there. Then a young woman in a neat uniform approached him quietly. "Are you the man who found Miss Cartwright?" she asked softly. Jason nodded, his heart beating faster. "She'd like to see you," she said with a gentle smile, and led him inside. The interior of the bank was far more imposing than Jason expected. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine, tall pillars rising to an ornately decorated ceiling. He followed the teller nervously through hallways until they stopped before a heavy door. Inside, Evelyn Cartwright rested on a couch, looking pale but alert. Her sharp green eyes studied Jason carefully. At her feet, the golden retriever lay, curled, wagging its tail weakly. "You came back," she said, a faint smile breaking through her exhaustion. Jason shrugged awkwardly. "I wanted to see if you were okay." Evelyn's eyes softened. "You didn't ask for anything. That means a lot to me." Jason looked down, embarrassed. "I'm just trying to be a good dad." Evelyn nodded knowingly. What did you do before this? Jason took a deep breath. I was an accountant. Before everything changed. There was a pause as Evelyn considered him. Then she said softly, sometimes life forces us to start over, even when we think we can't. Over the next days, Jason visited Evelyn several times. They talked for hours about loss, hope, and the crushing weight of responsibility. Jason shared his story, how his wife had passed away suddenly, leaving him to raise Lily alone. He spoke about his fears, the financial struggles, and his longing to provide more than just survival. Evelyn listened without judgment, her eyes reflecting both sadness and strength. She told him about her own burdens, how running a major bank had left her isolated, lonely despite her wealth. She confessed that the collapse on the sidewalk was the breaking point, a moment her body and soul could no longer bear. Sometimes, Evelyn said quietly, it takes losing control to find what truly matters. Jason felt a flicker of hope rise inside him. Maybe this chance encounter wasn't random. Maybe it was the beginning of something new. Weeks later, Jason sat in a small interview room at the bank, dressed in a borrowed suit that felt strange but hopeful. The panel of managers asked questions, but Jason answered honestly, his confidence growing with every word. Evelyn watched from the side, her faith in him evident. When the job offer came, it wasn't glamorous, a junior auditing position, but it was a lifeline. Jason accepted gratefully. At the diner, Jason handed in his apron with a mixture of relief and nervous excitement. His co-workers congratulated him warmly, and for the first time in a long time, Jason allowed himself to dream of a different future. At the bank, Jason worked diligently, soaking up knowledge, learning fast. Evelyn became more than a boss. She became a mentor and friend. She celebrated his small victories and encouraged his ambitions, pushing him to believe in himself again. One afternoon, unexpectedly, Evelyn showed up at Lily's school play. Jason felt his heart swell as she clapped enthusiastically for Lily's performance, sitting beside him with genuine pride. One evening, under soft fairy lights in Jason's backyard, Lily painted quietly on a canvas. Evelyn and Jason sipped tea surrounded by the gentle sounds of crickets and rustling leaves. Evelyn spoke softly. I built this empire thinking I could do it all alone. But I was wrong. That night you found me. You reminded me what people are worth. Not their money, but their hearts. Jason looked at Lily, who was lost in her art, then back at Evelyn's sincere eyes. You changed my life, he said quietly. More than you know. Max barked gently, as if to agree. Under the vast sky with laughter and hope mingling in the crisp air, Jason realized that sometimes all it takes is one small act of kindness to rewrite a life.